And joining me now to discuss are geopolitical strategists John Sitilides and George Szamuely, writer and senior fellow at the Global Policy Institute in London. George, let's start with you here. Now, let's start with the story about the RT journalists who were arrested. We know that they were EU citizens from France. They said Polish police targeted them and told them not to film. What do you make of their arrest for documenting the situation at the border?
Well, that's been the Polish position throughout. I mean, they haven't been allowing their own media to cover any of this because, of course, they don't want anything adverse presented in the media about Poland. But, of course, Poland and the EU do want to present this migrant crisis as the fault of Belarus. And also, interestingly, they want to make it as the fault of Russia. And so what we're now getting is a massive propaganda blitz from within the EU and over the weekend from the United Kingdom in the person of the Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss. Somehow it is all Russia's fault. They don't really explain how it is Russia's fault, but the fact is that this is a crisis that can very easily be solved. All it requires is a telephone call placed to Minsk and to ask Lukashenko what is his price. This has been done before. It was done with Erdogan in Turkey. You know, he has about 3-4 million. Here we're only talking about a few thousand. He has 3-4 million would-be migrants who could enter the EU. He had a price, I don't know, it was several billion euros. And the German government paid the price. The same thing has been done in Libya. There is nothing so exceptional about this. Unfortunately, the EU wants to use this border crisis as part of its propaganda campaign against Belarus and Russia.
Well, and we know that that footage that is directly from the ground is all too important, especially when you're looking at the overall media coverage. And John, I know that there has been a lot of increasing concern that we could see a full-on military conflict here. And now we have Poland's prime minister calling on NATO to take what he referred to as concrete steps to resolve the situation at their border. How likely is NATO to step in, and what can they do here?
Well, I think the first step is to see what the European Union can do. I mean, essentially, this is a European Union matter, and Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia are the frontline states against the Belarus border, and behind Belarus, Russia. And it's very difficult to see how this was not a manufactured geopolitical and humanitarian crisis that has come out of Minsk, which is the capital which allowed all of these migrants by the thousands to come into Belarus for the last 6 months, knowing they would not remain there. And the idea was to try to embarrass the West, which has yet to achieve a workable compromise between respect for the sanctity of human life and the absolute duty of every government to secure its borders and to protect sovereign territory. So Poland is now facing this crisis. I think the fact that we have Russian military maneuvers in the air above the checkpoint, massing troops along the Ukrainian border, is putting more pressure on the European Union to try to succumb to blackmail from Belarus, and as George just mentioned, perhaps on the model that was applied to Turkey after the 2015 crisis, which not only garnered Turkey 6 billion euros at that time in 2016, but again, just about 6 months ago, when this migration crisis began in Belarus, Turkey had secured another several $billions from Brussels.